At the beginning of the story, we see two brothers, one named Paul and the other Peter, trying to open a safe. Their entire family was involved in a robbery and had learned nothing but stealing from their parents. When the two brothers showed the safe to their mother, Olivia, she was very happy because she now believed that her children could successfully carry out any robbery. Then she said to Paul and Peter, "I am leaving home and I will never see you again." A long time ago, Olivia had carried out a heist with her boyfriend. However, while escaping from the police, her boyfriend was shot. Since then, Olivia had been hiding her boyfriend in her house. But today, after many days, the police finally discovered where Olivia and her boyfriend were hiding. To escape them, Olivia left home with her boyfriend, leaving Paul and Peter alone. Over time, both brothers continued stealing. One night, they planned a heist where they had memorized every detail necessary to rob money and escape in their car. During the robbery, they began discussing their mother, arguing about how she had betrayed them in childhood and abandoned them. Therefore, now they had to resort to petty thefts just to survive. While carrying out the robbery, Paul concentrated on opening the locker in one room, as he was an expert at it and could unlock it easily. Meanwhile, Peter watched for the police, but as something was amiss, before he could react, an officer arrived and saw Peter. The officer asked what he was doing there so late at night. Trying to evade suspicion, Peter gave vague and nonsensical answers, making the officer think he was crazy. When the officer moved in to arrest Peter, Paul suddenly appeared from behind and knocked the officer unconscious. The brothers knew that if they stayed any longer, more police would arrive. However, as soon as they tried to escape, they found a full police force waiting outside. The officers captured Peter and took him away, but Paul managed to hide and evade capture. Years later, we see Peter in prison. Surprisingly, the police released him early because he had made a deal with a prison officer named Albert. Before Peter left, Albert warned him that if he did not complete his task, he would send him back to prison. Albert's father was a judge, and with his influence he had secured Peter's release. Peter understood the situation well and left prison. On the other hand, Paul had left behind the criminal life. He was now working in a restaurant as an ordinary man, had married, and was expecting a child. One day, while working, Paul's boss suddenly came and fired him because he had hidden his criminal past. Paul tried to explain that he was a changed man, but his boss refused to listen. When Paul returned home, he discovered that his brother Peter had come to see him. After many years, Paul asked him how he got out of prison. Peter then told him everything, that he had made a deal with a prison officer who wanted him to steal some diamonds. If Peter failed, he would be sent back to prison. Peter then asked Paul for help, saying that with his skills he could easily steal those diamonds. However, Paul refused. Now that he had a family, he did not want to return to the criminal world like his mother and his brother. Paul then said, "There's a small party at my house today. If you want to eat, you can join us." Peter had not had a proper meal in years, so he decided to attend the party. At the party, he began drinking and talking with a man. When Paul saw this, he became furious and kicked Peter out of the party. Peter then checked into a hotel for the night, but his bad luck followed him. Albert arrived, hit him, and said, "I gave you a task, but instead you're joking." Peter tried to explain, "I'm gathering a team for the heist." Enraged, Albert pulled out a gun, took Peter's fingerprints, and said that if he did not complete the job, he would present his fingerprints to the police and have him locked up again. After Albert left, Paul came looking for Peter. When he saw Peter's bruised face, he realized that someone had beaten him brutally. Peter revealed that the officer had come and threatened him, and even had his fingerprints now. So if he didn't do the job, he would be sent back to prison. Paul understood that Peter was trapped on all sides, so he agreed to help, saying, "Any help you need in the heist, I will provide." Peter was delighted and said, "It's just a 2-day job. Tell your wife that you'll be gone for 2 days." Paul agreed and called his wife to explain that he had an urgent task with Peter and would return in 2 days. His wife understood and told him to finish his work and come back safe. The two brothers then left the hotel to begin their journey for the heist. The next day, Albert returned to the hotel to see Peter, but only found a dummy of Peter in the bed. He immediately realized that Peter had escaped. Albert informed his father, the judge, about Peter's escape. However, instead of worrying, his father scolded him, saying, "I gave you a simple task and you failed. No matter what, bring Peter back and bring me those diamonds." We understand that despite being a high-ranking judge, Albert's father was greedy for wealth. Albert did not want to disappoint his father, so he promised, "I will find Peter and steal those diamonds for you." Meanwhile, Peter and Paul traveled during the night and arrived at a house, the house of Peter's girlfriend. The two met after many years, but she was angry because Peter had not sent her a message before going to jail, nor had he contacted her after his release. However, when Peter explained his terrible experience, she forgave him. They began to speak romantically, and his girlfriend took him to a room. Meanwhile, outside, Paul was feeling bored when a chimpanzee approached him. The chimpanzee belonged to Peter's girlfriend. At first, Paul was scared, but soon he relaxed and began interacting with the chimpanzee. They introduced themselves, and the chimpanzee said, "My name is Sam, and I'm happy living here." However, moments later, the chimpanzee began acting strangely and clung to Paul, which made him nervous for fear of what the chimpanzee might do. Paul quickly ran to his car and sat inside. Meanwhile, inside the house, Peter waited for his girlfriend to leave the room, and while she was out, he secretly stole her identification card. Then he left and joined Paul in the car. On the way, Paul complained that the chimpanzee was acting very strangely with him. Peter laughed and said that it was just his girlfriend's pet and that it wouldn't hurt anyone. That night, the two brothers stayed in a hotel. While Paul was showering, he found some letters among Peter's belongings. The letters were written by their mother, Olivia, to Peter. Paul realized that Peter had been in contact with their mother all along and felt betrayed when he confronted Peter about it. Peter avoided the question and simply said, "Mom has cancer and doesn't have much time left. We need to be with her in her final moments." Paul now understood that their mother had also been involved in the heist. Suddenly, the hotel room door opened and their mother, Olivia, entered. Upon seeing her, Paul was immediately surprised. He ran and jumped from the first floor, landing in a car, but surprisingly, he was not injured. Later, the three sat in a bar and began talking. An angry Paul asked Olivia, "Where were you during the last 20 years? Why didn't you come to see us even once?" Olivia explained that she had been hiding from the world to escape the police. Then she revealed that when she and her boyfriend were escaping, they had some valuable diamonds so as not to be caught. Her boyfriend had swallowed them and then died. Then she buried his body so that one day she or her children could recover the diamonds. Upon hearing this, Paul became furious and declared, "It doesn't matter. I will not participate in this heist," and added, "This was a direct betrayal." He went straight to the bathroom where he began to vent all his anger. Peter followed and tried to reason with his brother, saying that they were not stealing anything but simply reclaiming something that had belonged to them years ago. Somehow, he managed to convince Paul. Meanwhile, Albert was looking for Peter and went straight to his girlfriend's house, asking for him. At first, his girlfriend refused to reveal anything, saying that she had only met Peter and his brother yesterday. But Albert pressed a knife against her neck and forced her to tell the truth. Terrified, she admitted that she had met Peter the day before, but he had deceived her. He did not come to see her. Instead, he had stolen her identification card and then disappeared. At that moment, the sound of a chimpanzee screaming from inside the house caught Albert's attention. He looked outside and saw a chimpanzee attacking its owner, asserting its dominance. The chimpanzee dragged Albert inside and beat him brutally. Shortly after, Albert was seen running out of the house, badly beaten. Meanwhile, Paul and Peter's mother had discovered where their mother's boyfriend's body was buried. Peter then used his girlfriend's identification card to go to a construction site where he easily stole an excavator, a JCB. The three took the JCB to the place where they believed the diamonds could be found. However, after so many years, the place had become private property. But that did not stop them. Without permission, they began to dig a huge well at the site where the boyfriend's body had been buried. Now, only his bones remained along with the remnants, and they found the diamonds they had been searching for. However, another problem arose. The owner of the property was present. He saw them and, along with his men, began chasing them. What followed was an intense pursuit, but the three thieves managed to escape successfully. They fled to a forest where the two brothers decided to rebury the remains of their mother's boyfriend. Then, when Paul discovered that he had been deliberately fired from his job and that Peter was behind it. Peter had wanted Paul to lose his job so that he would join them in this mission. This revelation shocked Paul, filling him with rage. He attacked Peter, hitting him and throwing him into the very well where his mother's boyfriend's remains lay. Paul shouted in anger that they should never have come to this heist, then walked away, furious, and sat alone by a pond. Their mother approached him and tried to calm him, reminding him that Peter was still his brother and that he should not treat him that way. But Paul, still furious, refused to listen, accusing his mother of abandoning them in childhood and only returning when she needed something. His mother denied it, saying that she had always loved them deeply, and explained that the only reason she had planned the heist was so that after she left, she could leave them with the wealth of the diamonds. Meanwhile, Albert had arrived in the forest, found Peter, and captured him, vowing to send him back to prison. From a distance, Peter launched an attack against Albert to free his brother. However, during the fight, Paul's fingerprints ended up on a weapon, putting both brothers in a dangerous situation. Albert then demanded all the diamonds, promising to let them go in exchange. At that moment, their mother arrived with the diamonds. Albert threatened that if she did not hand them over, he would shoot her children. Surprisingly, instead of saving them, their mother abandoned them and fled with the diamonds. Albert chased after her, but she had already escaped. Paul and Peter were distraught when they realized that their mother had chosen wealth over them. Albert then took the two brothers in his car and drove to the police station, telling them that because of their mother, he would now ensure they ended up in jail. Enraged, the two brothers began fighting each other inside the car, blaming each other for everything that had happened. Albert tried to stop them, but in doing so, he lost control of the car. The vehicle crashed, leaving Albert unconscious. However, the two brothers were unharmed. Taking advantage of the opportunity, they took Albert's car and escaped. While resting in a secluded spot, Paul called his wife and assured her that he would be home soon. Later, when he went out, Peter told him to leave because he had a family to care for and should no longer be involved in this mess. However, Paul refused. He reminded Peter that they were family and that he would not abandon him in such a situation. He also revealed that he knew where their mother had gone and suggested that they find her and put an end to everything. Meanwhile, their mother was in a place converting the diamonds into cash. However, she did not sell them all at once. She kept 2 diamonds aside, thinking that they might be useful in the future. The merchant handed her a bag full of cash as he left with the money. Paul and Peter were already waiting for her. However, they were not happy to see her with the money. They had lost faith in her and were convinced that she intended to keep everything for herself. Paul confronted her and asked what she planned to do with so much money. His mother lied, saying that she would come to an agreement if he intended to split the money equally. But once again she betrayed them. She grabbed the money and tried to flee. Paul chased her to a shopping mall, desperately trying to grab the bag from her hands. However, during the struggle, the bag slipped from her hands and fell to the ground, landing right in front of Peter. At that moment, Albert arrived with the police. The officers surrounded them. Peter grabbed the bag and tried to escape, but Albert fired a shot, warning him that the money belonged to him and that he would not leave without it. Albert searched the shopping mall for Peter, who was hiding, and Paul joined Peter. When he saw the bag full of money, an idea occurred to him. He convinced Peter to come out, and the two pretended to surrender to Albert. Albert demanded the bag of money, promising to let them go in exchange. However, the brothers began arguing. Meanwhile, their mother was watching from above, lamenting how her actions had put her children in this situation. Paul, angry, said that they should never have come to the shopping mall, while Peter blamed Paul for everything, saying that if he had not brought him here in search of their mother, he wouldn't be in this mess. Frustrated by their disputes, Albert fired a shot at a tree in fear, then demanded the bag again. Terrified, the brothers threw the bag toward Albert. When he opened it, a full stream of chemicals burst out into his eyes, something the brothers had planned in advance. Blinded, Albert staggered as the very tree he had shot collapsed on him. An explosion occurred, and Albert was crushed, falling unconscious. Then their mother arrived and handed them the bag of money, saying that she did not want to see them go to jail. She revealed that she had cancer and would not live much longer, took a gun, and turned herself into the police so that her children could be free. Paul and Peter escaped with the money. Later, Paul went directly to a judge, handed over his share of the money, and requested the weapon that had Peter's fingerprints on it. The judge accepted the money and gave Paul the evidence that allowed Peter to remain free. Paul returned home where his wife had prepared dinner for the family. Peter also joined them and they all had dinner together. Peter revealed that he had used his share of the money to buy a large plot of land, which he registered in Paul's daughter's name to secure her future. In turn, Paul revealed that he had used all his money to recover the weapon with Peter's fingerprints on it. Now both brothers had no money, but they were happier than ever, enjoying their lives. Later, they visited their mother in prison. Finally, Paul had a daughter, and when their mother was released, she was very happy to see the family complete again. In the end, Peter revealed that his mother had not converted all the diamonds into cash. She had swallowed 2 of them when she turned herself in to the police, which means that they still had the diamonds and that their family could become rich again.